Daisy does seem to have built a lot of her brand on false promises, unrealistic expectations, and potentially marketing towards insecurities that many of us may have. Summertime is here, and many of you are pondering what you can do to help you achieve that body that you desire over summer. And we're going to talk about a few things surrounding that. Not only are people working on themselves for summer, be that from a fitness perspective or an aesthetic perspective, creators and influencers are creating content to align with those goals that are very seasonal, such as summertime goals, which is what we're looking at today from Daisy Keech, being do these exercises every day for summer abs. So we're going to talk about a few things. We're going to talk about whether these exercises will in fact give you those summer abs, and we're also going to talk about a few things regarding seasonal goals, but we'll get to that very shortly. If at any point you decide you like the video, or maybe even just tolerate the video, then please let me know by liking the video, and maybe even by subscribing to the channel by clicking the red button down below. A lot of Daisy's workouts were obviously time-based, where she would obviously say do this for X number of seconds. I like rep-based in this case, because again, then you can make sure you're doing an equal number per side. Toe taps, again, the term abs in my head kind of refers to the six-pack. When you are doing a movement like this, toe taps, where there is no range of motion beyond the hip flexors working here, it's not going to do a lot for your abs. What it will do a lot for is obviously it's going to burn a lot because you're maintaining tension in this position, but you're not going through a range of motion, which is very important when looking at actually building the abs. The only thing going through the range of motion here is going to be the hip flexors. Russian twist. Oh, there's a cat outside in the wilderness. I assume she's by her house. That must be her cat. People typically avoid doing oblique dominant movements like Russian twist. The only thing there's twisting related. Look at the cat. That's sweet. Because developing the obliques could lead to the appearance of a thicker waist. I'm not saying it necessarily will, but it could lead to that appearance. The bridge sit-up is a kind of like unnecessary one in the sense that the sit-up or the crunch is a good movement. Regardless of what anyone says, the crunch is a really underrated ab movement. It effectively takes the sternum closer to the pelvis, which is going through the active range of motion for the abdominal muscles. The bridge is unnecessary because if this is an ab workout, why is a bridge included? I think it's more so just to look a bit better and look a bit cooler, when in reality just doing a standard crunch is fantastic. And the thing that's great about the crunch is obviously not only does it go through the active range of motion of the abs, you can also weight it, so you can add weight to it, so hold a weight there, which again means you can progressively overload it. Again, the bike goes back to what I mentioned earlier about the abs are not going through a range of motion. The abdominal region, see, there's literally nothing happening here. She's lifting her head up slightly. All the range of motion is going to be coming from the hip flexors, which again, not the muscles you're looking at working here. You want the six-pack muscles to be doing the most of the work. Again, the half leg raise is taking what could have been a better movement and essentially make it less effective, because what's going on here is she's going through the range of motion for the hip flexors, but if she were just to bring the legs all the way up and maybe do a bit of a reverse crunch at the top, she would then reduce the distance between her pelvis and her sternum, which would then involve the abs going through an active range of motion, because you will be doing a crunch motion and reducing that distance, which would then again effectively work the six-pack muscles that you're hoping to work. Jackknives I actually think are decent. The reason why I like them is because not only do you get some crunch motion here, so the abs are going through their active range of motion, as you can see here, you see this crunching, reducing the distance slightly. You're also getting some rotation as well, which then means the obliques might be doing something as well. So not only are you working the abdominal region, you're also looking at working the obliques too. Again, if you don't want to work the obliques, you don't need to do them. The oblique involvement is probably not as great as you might think, and arguably the ab involvement is also arguably not as great as you might think, because the range of motion is limited, but I do still think it's a good movement. What I would say when doing this movement is prioritize upper body movement over lower body movements. Really try and get your upper back and shoulders off the mat as much as possible, so you're really crunching up to meet the toes, not necessarily bring the toes to meet you. If you're doing something more for the core strengthening / core stability side of things, I would favor just a standard plank. I don't really think you need to do a reverse plank here. Again, I think just holding a standard plank is fine. If you want to actually make it a bit more, maybe even beneficial depending on what your goals are, you can look at doing like an arm reach. Handsome. He's grown so much, I know. As you know, linked down below in the description and maybe even in the comment section will be a few things. TFNL group coaching, in which I create programs for the community to do as a group or individually if you so wish, which is obviously run through the Train Heroic app. That's for home and gym workouts. There's also Train Like Me, which is a third program releasing at the beginning of July, 3rd of July, I believe, and that costs less than your Netflix subscription. You also have the TFNL coaching application form, where you can work with either myself, Ryder, and potentially even Beth, if that video has been released yet. pending, on a one-to-one basis to help you achieve your goals, whatever they may be. Or if none of those tickle your pickle, you can obviously look at the TFNL workout guides. So you've got the home workout handbook for your home workout needs and the growth guide, which is a massive resource for so many bits and bobs, fitness and training related, both of which have at least 30 weeks of programming within them. And also there is currently in the works an upper body guide and a glute guide pending for the release around hopefully the 17th of July. Now we've kind of spoken about the workout, which is obviously only taking up a small portion of this video, we've got to speak about a couple of things. So number one, if you really want a workout that is going to be really effective for developing those summer abs, I will tell you exactly what you need to do, and I'll do so in a much shorter time than Daisy has here. From an abdominal development perspective, to allow you to then see the abs better from a, like I said, development perspective, you're going to look at a couple of things. You're going to look at a crunch variation in which you are reducing the distance between your sternum and your pelvis. If you're working at home, I'd say a standard crunch. If you work out at the gym, maybe a rope crunch. And then you're going to do a reverse crunch variation or a leg raise variation in which you're reducing the distance between your pelvis and your sternum, thus bringing in a bit more of the lower ab fibers. That could be a reverse crunch if you're working out at home, like a hanging leg raise perhaps if you're at the gym. Doing those two movements, 2 sets of each to failure, so really training hard with the implementation of weight if you can. So let's say anywhere from 5 to 30 reps, holding the weight either between the legs or in the hands if you can, twice a week, and you'll be baffled by the results you see from a developmental perspective. From a visibility perspective, we've now got to consider something else. So abdominal visibility and whether you actually see your summer abs really depends on your body fat level. So if you're in a position where you want to go enter a deficit because it aligns with your goals and you can do so in a healthy and safe manner, then what you would simply do is enter a calorie deficit. You'd find your maintenance calories, which you can go on like tdeecalculator.com or something along those lines and figure out where your maintenance calories are. Do so and then reduce them by, let's say, 250 as a starting number. And then if you start losing weight, you're entering a deficit, in which case over time you will lose fat whilst provided you're training heavy enough, and by heavy I mean heavy for you, training with sufficient intensity, maintaining muscle, and over time as you reduce the body fat percentage gradually, you'll begin developing more visible abs due to being leaner. That's really all it is. Train abs a couple of times a week, not that much volume, just train them hard, enter a deficit, and maybe walk a bit more. If you do 8,000 steps, maybe do 10,000 steps to help accelerate that deficit slightly. Genuinely, you do all those things, make sure you're eating enough protein, I typically say about 1 gram per pound of body weight, and drinking enough water. Genuinely, you'll be baffled at the results you see. Just be patient with it. There is no quick fix to anything. You're never going to get something in 7 days or 10 days, whatever it may be. Take your time, do so in a healthy and sustainable manner, and if you are consistent with it, which is the main thing, being consistent, I genuinely believe you'll be surprised with the results you can achieve doing a lot less than you probably thought you needed to do. Abs are one of the few muscle groups where their maintenance volume, so the minimum amount of volume you need to do to maintain abdominal muscle development, is 0. You can not train your abs and you will maintain abdominal development in most cases. If you do that for a lot of other muscles and didn't train them, you would not maintain muscle mass and you would actually eventually lose muscle mass through inactivity. Whereas with the abs, you can actually maintain abdominal development through doing nothing. But if you want to grow them and develop them, which is not a bad thing, then you have to train them obviously with sufficient intensity. Just like any other muscle group. It doesn't matter if you want to get lean for a bodybuilding stage, you want to get strong abs for whatever reason, or just want to get a bit fitter, a bit leaner for the summer ab or summer body you're looking to achieve. Train them all the same. It doesn't need to be that complicated. Honestly, it sounds silly, but it really can be that simple. I dare you just to try it and let me know what happens. But you've got to be honest with yourself. Are you consistent and are you training hard enough? And if I'm wrong, I will apologize on camera, but trust me, I don't believe I will be. And on top of that, the thing you've also got to remember is if you're pursuing that kind of summer body and the season body, I don't think pursuing a body goal, again, this is very much dependent, this is my opinion, if you want to pursue a body goal for a season, that's fully up to you and I fully back it. But I don't think a body goal should necessarily be seasonal. If you are look and aesthetic and visually driven, achieving a look that you are happy with, that is sustainable and healthy. Again, you may not be driven by your aesthetics and driven by your appearance, which is absolutely fine, I fully support that. But if you are driven by those things, I don't think achieving something for a season is necessarily the best approach because again, it's temporary. What you're looking for is something that's sustainable year round, that makes you happy and is healthy. A lot of creators will clickbait a lot of their videos, as I often do myself for the purpose of attracting a new audience so I can hopefully educate them with better practices surrounding fitness. But a lot of people would do so with the idea of false promises of do this to achieve something. Do these exercises every day for summer abs. When in reality, that's not the case. It implies that doing these exercises is a secret summer abs, or doing these exercises will give you results that you've never experienced before, when I just don't think that's true. Ultimately, it really is as simple as train your abs like any other muscle group with sufficient intensity and not too much volume. Eat in a deficit if you need to, because you want to lose weight and look a bit leaner, and maintain consistent variables outside of that, water intake, sleep, etc., and move a bit more, and you'll be absolutely fine. There is no secret workout to achieve summer abs. Daisy does seem to have built a lot of her brand on false promises, unrealistic expectations, and potentially marketing towards insecurities that many of us may have. I think that can be quite troublesome because it further encourages those insecurities and further pushes you down that rabbit hole, when in reality, if she just turned around and said, actually, it's really simple, do this, do this, do this, you'll probably achieve good results, but it will take time. Although it doesn't look so good for YouTube, may not get as many clicks, it's true, and it's arguably healthier and arguably more sustainable. But at the end of the day, the way I kind of see things is if doing Daisy's workouts gets you moving and gets you fitter and healthier and closer to your goals, regardless of whether I agree with what she's doing or disagree with what she's doing, I fully support it and I fully back it. At the end of the day, if she is getting people moving, benefiting the lives of people, helping them achieve goals that they may not have achieved without her, that's a good thing. I do also acknowledge that there are potentially negative drawbacks where maybe she isn't benefiting people, where she could actually be in fact potentially feeding insecurities and potentially harming people, but I like to think that's not the case, and I'm going to give her the benefit of the doubt that she is helping people, and for that I fully respect and fully appreciate it, even if what she's doing doesn't align with my preferences. But now that's done, we're going to quickly crack on with comment question of the week. What else do you wish you'd done or done differently from the beginning of your fitness journey? I wish I didn't do as much. I used to train for like 3 or 4 hours a day and not eat enough. I was eating barely anything and training for hours and hours and wondering why I wasn't getting results. I wish I'd taken time to step back and actually educate myself to realize that I could actually train less, eat more and achieve more, and probably accelerate the progress I made very early on, when in reality I was just giving it the beans, and in doing so I was actually really sacrificing, I think, a lot of my social life as well. I'd give up loads of social events just to go to the gym so I could be there for 4 hours, when in reality I could do my session in an hour and it'd be more effective, and I could still socialize with my friends and actually develop a lot of memories. I always said that one of the big drawbacks I had from being a teenager when I started training was I didn't make a lot of great memories because I spent a lot of my time worrying about being in the gym for 4 hours even though I wasn't training very effectively, and that's a big disappointment for me, because I look back and I really missed out on a lot of my kind of teenage, I think, low responsibility years, we'll say, when in reality I could have done both even better, which is a shame, but it's a regret I have, but I can't change that. What I can do is adopt a healthier and more sustainable approach going forward so I can make better memories going forward from now. That is it. That's this video. Thank you for tolerating me. Thank you for tolerating my still hatless head. I'm working on it, and thank you for tolerating the video.